Welcome, everybody, and thank you for coming this evening to my Man's Search for Meaning third attempt at trying to get this broadcast for you all. I have tried twice now. I'm feeling like maybe the third time is the charm. I'm hoping so. Um, Welcome, and I would like to dedicate this broadcast to a dear friend of mine who I met in an online community who was just sent to hospice this evening uh, with COVID. And so we all are truly very close to at least one person who has suffered greatly or is still suffering. So this one's for you, Orla Dawn. Thank you. You've been a valuable friend, and Godspeed to you and your family. I'd like to start out with talking a little bit about Viktor Frankl. Frankl was an Austrian therapist during World War II. He and his family were Jewish, and they were rounded up and sent to concentration camp. When he got to the concentration camp, he was worried because he wasn't real healthy, strong, and he didn't know how he was going to make it because, of course, they thought they were all there to work and make products and do other things. That's what they were led to believe. The women were separated at the time, and the children and the other people in his family were separated, and he never saw them again. They did not survive, but they survived in Victor's mind and in his memories. So this book carries with it a lot of valuable lessons that all of us could learn by being, I guess, survivors or incarcerated with COVID. It's certainly a different situation, but there are a lot of other things that can be determined and be discovered by our own thoughts and wisdom and taking time to find the meaning in our own lives. We don't spend a lot of time working on what is the meaning of my life. We're here, we have things to do, we have that old day job, we have children we have to raise or pets we have to care for, groceries have to be gone and gotten, cleaning the house. You know it all. You know what they all are. So we get this sort of idea that I don't really have time to think about the meaning of life, and what is meaning, and all that hocus pocus. But Frankl spends an awful lot of time, he says, and asks us to think about the meaning of our lives, particularly about the meaning of this coming day and what it means for me. I believe that we can set the tone in the morning if we wake up and we feel pretty ready for the day. Even if we're not ready, if we can say something like, I am fabulous, I am wide awake, I am happy, I am ready to begin my day, I am grateful. Many of those I ams are mantras that can carry us through. When we utilize negative words, it only brings us into that negative zone. We don't even realize it, but we do it all the time. So the power of the spoken word and the power of the way you feel about your own self is something that you have to think about, and you have to make the change. Make the change. Be ready to love yourself. Frankl says maybe the meaning of your life is to love and be loved, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with loving and being loved. I think that we need to return to some of the ways that we grew up in when we were much younger. And I'm not talking about going back. I'm talking about moving forward. But in moving forward, we also are caring about the people that are around us and what's going on. There are many people, unfortunately, that still believe either that the coronavirus is a hoax, it's no worse than the flu or a cold, and that it won't touch them because they're strong and they're brave. Or they're arguing about wearing a piece of cloth across their mouths and over their nose, uh, for no reason, really, for no reason. I think the most reason that we're talking is an exaggerated and repetitive statement that somehow this is not necessary, and no modeling to prove at the higher realms. I see the modeling, however, in England or in other places, not necessarily Brazil, but Canada, and of course, President-elect Joe Biden and his people very seriously about masking and taking care of other people. There is a chance that you take one chance, and that chance could not only infect you but other people, and maybe, just maybe, you'll be okay. But I also know a lot of people that are COVID long haulers. In other words, they're having problems with memory. They're having problems with the smell or taste. They're having problems with terrible, agonizing muscle, and they don't have any energy, or they can't breathe, or they can't walk very far, or whatever. It may not affect them so that they're going to keel over at that point, but some of them have to stay on oxygen for the rest of their lives. We're not being told this enough, or people are not listening to what's being told enough. Anyway, much like seatbelts, we got used to it. It was an important thing to protect the other. And protecting the other is what we do when we have safe sex. Why can't we do it when we have safe chats? I don't understand. Viktor Frankl said that it is we ourselves that must answer the questions that life asks of us. And to these questions, we can respond only by being responsible for our existence, because nobody else can tell us what to do with our meaning in life. However, I think that there are some people who have taken this to a very, very strong position, I would say, by saying, you can't tell me what to do. I'm not going to listen to you. I'm free. Freedom comes with responsibility. We cannot be a free society without being responsible. We learned that a long time ago. It's an important thing. It's an ethical thing. It is deeply important. We have to love ourselves enough and love other people enough to be able to say, this needs to be taken care of. As Frankl tells us in his book, written after he was liberated from Auschwitz. Frankl brings up many, many pieces in this book, and I'm not going to give you all of them because I believe that it's such a valuable book that you need to read it yourself. Some of the things that he brings up, one of the first things he brings up is he recognized almost immediately who was going to make it and who wasn't. Remember, he gets separated. They find out he's a doctor, but he's a therapist, but they think he's a doctor, and they want to keep him around to take care of the Nazis and so on and so forth. So they're not going to gas him. However, his wife and other people in his family do get gassed. He doesn't know that, however, until he gets out. So Frankl watches very carefully how people are with terms of how long they are going to be in there. Much like we are. We have pandemic fatigue. We're not too thrilled that we don't know the answer to things. And yet, in the scope of things, this really isn't very long. I think if we looked at how long we brush our teeth over our lifetime, it's like 39 days, or I don't know. And that's if you're a really good toothbrush brusher. Anyway, he said when people started trading food for cigarettes, because you were given 2 cigarettes a day, and I think 1 meal, or it's mostly soup, watery soup. But he noticed that even the strong and robust and healthy and, manly man types of men that he saw in the camp had the hardest time with remaining alive. He said that it was more difficult for them because they had no spiritual belief system, and they depended completely on their physicality, and this made it very difficult for them. They were, I guess the best way to say it is, it's like you can't go to the club for 3 years or whatever it was, and this was very disheartening to these people. So what they would do is they would eventually sell off their food for extra cigarettes, and he would watch them, and they would die within that period of time. The other thing he talks about is this brutal group of sort of middle management prison guards called the Capos. The Capos were actually chosen by the Nazis, and they were the strong men that were prisoners, that were the Jews. And so you're turning Jew against Jew. In other words, they're watching you. And their very existence and the lush things that they get, extra cigarettes, maybe a bottle of booze every once in a while, extra food, they want that. It's survival of the fittest, but not. It's the survival of people that are the most brutal people that they choose. It was considered that their job was higher than that of a bank manager or president, or the higher than a governor. It was like, wow, you're a capo. But they were hated by all the other Jewish people because they were not on their side, I guess. And I'm seeing this now in the Republican Party, how it's changed, how somebody's, they're standing up and saying, this is fraud, and we need to get rid of this Republican governor because he won't overturn the election. So it's Republican turning on Republican. It was Jew turning on Jew. Why? For a benefit. There's so much in this that you could juxtapose in the current reality that we live. It's quite amazing. He says that we can take the time to use our minds to achieve our goals and to find out the meaning, or make the meaning in our life, even through the pain, even through ugliness. You can find beauty, he said. There was a group of people that would practice instruments, and they could hear beautiful songs being played, or a young woman looking out a window could see a tree that she loved and know that that was her only friend, but that kept her alive. It was enough for her that she had that. And this absolutely brings to mind Frankl's ability to keep his family here. He says when he's going through having everything stripped of him, his clothing, his hair, they shaved his complete body. They put on a tattoo with a number on it. So he was stripped of his name. He was stripped of his wife, of course, at least, that she was away in another place, and his family. He was stripped of his business. He was stripped of his home. He was stripped of every single thing except his mind and his memory. Frankl said he spent a lot of time ruminating on memories of his home, of his family, of his wife. In his mind, they were alive. Whether they were or not, he did not know. But they were alive for Viktor. They brought him through because he turned to that as a very valuable way of saying, you can take this away, you can take that away, but I still have this. I tend to think of that when I think about holidays and how people are so angry because they cannot celebrate a holiday this year with family and friends. And I say, I have many memories of many beautiful holidays. And I'm in a very, very good place. I know not all people are. I have warmth, I have food. I have family close by that we can talk on the phone, and so on. But it's only one Christmas or one Thanksgiving out of others that we have. It's not that much of a sacrifice if you think of it that way. If you believe something has been taken away from you and somehow you're owed something for that, or you're just really sick of it and you want to give up on it to the detriment of yourself and others, then you have no strong basis for believing that this is temporary and that it isn't going to last forever, and that maybe this in and of itself has meaning behind it. Maybe this can give you the meaning you've wanted to find in your life. Maybe you didn't think you had to have another meaning. Or maybe your meaning is, I want to be loved and to be loved. I want to learn. I want to plant a garden. I want to start a journal. I want to sing a song. I want to walk a dog. What is your purpose? What is your purpose? Only you know that. And Frankl said he knew that. And that is how he survived, even under those conditions, even under all of that stress and trauma, and every day not knowing whether he would live or die, whether they would decide, oh, we don't really need this guy, let's send him off to the gas chambers today. How do you know? How do you know? Well, we all live with that daily, but we don't think about it. You know, we don't spend a lot of time ruminating on our mortality. But Frankl says, there's always a chance every day. This is your last. Are you acting like that, or are you not? Some real good stuff, some really wonderful things. He quotes Nietzsche in here, and a lot of people don't like Nietzsche. They feel like, well, Hitler read Nietzsche, so he must be a bad guy. But he says, he who has a why to live for can bear almost any how. I'll say that one more time. He who has a why to live for can bear almost any how. He said that over and over to himself when he was incarcerated. Frankl drew upon uniquely human capacities like inborn optimism, humor. He said there actually is humor in a concentration camp, and I'm seeing it here in a pandemic. Somebody said today on the news, it was cute because they're having the Warnock Ossoff Democratic candidates runoff down in Georgia, that we need to Warnock our Ossoff. I love that. I just thought that was so good. I love humor. Humor in all things. Humor can be found. You can say to yourself, why the heck did this happen? Or how did that happen? That has saved my life more than once. Psychological detachment is what he did as well. He said that when something was unbearable, that sometimes he had to use the concept of the abnormal reaction to something is actually normal in an abnormal situation. He chronicles the time that he was in charge of the slop bucket, the one that you bring out to the fields so people can utilize it if they have to go to the restroom. You just mainly sit on the bucket, and then in the evening he'd have to bring it back. He was lucky. If he was lucky, it wouldn't be so full, but many times it was obviously why they call it a slop bucket. It spilled over. If he was carrying it, it would spill all onto his hands. And if he went in a wagon, it would jostle and spill all over his feet. If he made any kind of a face or a reaction or disgust, he would be beaten. And he just taught himself that an abnormal reaction to an abnormal occurrence is normal in a situation like that. How can you make something like that normal? But he did. He made it very normal. Most people died from a lack, not of food, but of something to live for. They had no meaning. They were in an existential void. And in that existential void, that void of our existence, they could find no compelling reason why they should stay alive. Some of them choosing dates that they felt they would be liberated, saying over and over again that they would be liberated, saying a specific date that they would be liberated, having that date come, and having that date come to the end, they would perish, many of them, because they had given up. And they did, in fact, become liberated from the camp, if you think about it. It's an unusual set of circumstances, I recognize. I'm going to leave you with this, because there's nothing worse, I think, than feeling like a lecture. And they say after 20 minutes, people lose interest. So I'm just going to leave you with this. And, if you want to discuss this book, and I will welcome any of your comments, and I would love to have a discussion with you. But he says, as each situation in life represents a challenge to man and presents a problem for him to solve, the question of the meaning of life may actually be reversed. Ultimately, man should not ask what the meaning of life is of anyone else. The meaning of life, your life, is specific to you and your journey on this planet. He said, instead, we shouldn't ask for the meaning, but rather we recognize it is us who is asked. We are being asked to look at the meaning of our lives. In a word, each man is questioned by life, and he can only answer to life by answering for his own life. To life, he can only respond by being responsible. And this is the very essence of human existence. Frankl has a lot more. Frankl goes through a great deal. We're all going through a great deal. We are experiencing a lot of heartache. We have a lot of stress. We have a lot of uncertainty. We have a worry over conflict. We have a worry over our very existence in some cases. And we have to learn what kind of meaning we need to make without being told by somebody from the outside. And so I am not telling you, you must do this. I am asking you to consider it and what your own meaning is, because it's ultimately up to you anyway, not me, not your spouse, not your child, not your girlfriend or boyfriend or best friend. It's you. Who are you? What are you? We must answer these things ourselves. Thank you very much, and I apologize for not having this up when I promised I would. I usually don't do that. But now I know how to do this broadcast where I don't have to do it live. I think that it would be awesome to be able to continue this conversation. However, if you're interested in Zoom meetings, but I'm amenable. I'm very flexible. One of the things I've learned in my life is there's nothing as constant as change, and I welcome and embrace it. I believe that that is the meaning in my life, that I accept change when it comes, and that I learn and grow from it, even when it's too difficult sometimes to even think about. God bless you. Namaste. Have a good night. Thank you.